Hi everyone, it's Liam here from Rating the Races. So we're back with handicap analysis, and let's go through those horses that caught my eye. Starting with Forward Plan, who has dropped a pound down to 37. Now, as you can see on my screen, he's been pretty consistent for the last couple of seasons. But interestingly, his worst run in that last, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 runs before Saturday actually came in the Badger Beers, or the Badger Ales, whichever race it's called, on Saturday the 11th of November, on his first run back. So he needed his first run last season. He was beaten 25 lengths. This year he was beaten 31 lengths in fourth, in the Badger, what's it called at the moment? Is it called the Badger Ales? The Badger Beers. So he was beaten 41 lengths, he finished fourth, and the front two just ran riot, didn't they? Al Dancer and Lord Accord. I mean, if you took off the lead or the winning victory from Al Dancer, we're suddenly reducing that 31 down to 21 lengths. It's more respectable from Forward Plan. And yeah, maybe he just needed the run. He was also a long way back, couldn't get involved. And he'd also disappointed there before. He's actually had 3 runs at Wincanton. We can see he's also turned up in January 2022 at Wincanton. He finished 5th. He was beaten 22 lengths that day. So he's now been beaten at Wincanton by 22 lengths, 25 lengths and 31 lengths. Maybe he just doesn't act at Wincanton. And I'd be looking at getting involved probably next time out with Forward Plan. Because I think his last time out effort, or his previous run before Saturday at Aintree, was a good effort. He was only beaten 2 1/4 lengths at Aintree when he finished 3rd. Where do I think they'll go with him? Well, last season they actually ran in the Great Yorkshire Chase, and we can see that they finished 2nd in a race worth 57 grand for the winner, beaten by Annual Invictus. Surely that's where they're going to go back. Yes, it's off a higher mark. He's £8 higher now. But he demonstrated at Aintree and also at Kempton when he actually won. He won Kempton off a £4 higher mark. He then went to Aintree off another £4 higher mark. He demonstrated in those runs that maybe he's not finished improving. And I do think he will be able to get involved if he goes straight to this Yorkshire Chase. See, I wouldn't have an issue with him going straight to the Yorkshire Chase, then going to Kempton for the Coral Trophy that he won, because it's a 85 grand race, and then going to Aintree for the race he finished 3rd in. I mean, he'd have had 4 runs for the season. Last year he only had the 5. Does he really need to go to Doncaster like he did in December and win that race? Because that's only worth 26. He won a 26 grand race, then didn't win a 56 grand race, and then did win an 85, whereas surely you just target the 2 more lucrative races rather than going and winning something that could end up ruining your chance for those more lucrative races later on. Leave him now, go straight for Doncaster for the Great Yorkshire Chase, and I think he would go really well there. When he actually got beat at Doncaster, he was only beaten a nose, so his 2 runs at Doncaster, he's won and got beat a nose. Second horse I want to talk about, Gallia de la Toe, dropped a pound to 144, which was very kind, I thought, to Dan Skelton and Michael Arris, the owner. Should never have been dropped, because look at the horse's form. Last season, won over 2 miles 7, then ran over 3 mile, 2 miles 7 again, then ran over 3 mile 5, finished 2nd. That was in a classic chase. Then went to Exeter for a 3 mile race, and then ended up in the Grand National. 2 mile 4 on her return, was probably never going to be far enough. So to drop her a pound, I think, is very bizarre. There was no need to drop her a pound for that at all. Where does she go? Surely she ends up in the Welsh National. 3 miles 6, 130 yards, the right sort of trip. She's proven last season when finishing 2nd in the Classic Chase on soft that she likes the going, that she's likely to encounter. She's also won at Warwick on heavy going in a Hampton Court. Hampton Novices Chase, yeah, surely she ends up in the Welsh National, and I think she'll run a really big race. And this race at Carlisle was clearly just a prep run for something. I think it was probably the Welsh National. Moving on to Killer Kane, who has dropped a pound to 121 after finishing 4 for 4, only beaten 4 1/4 lengths by Bo Balco, Tedley and Dreaming Blue. Now, Bo Balco came into the race off a very good return, but was trained by Paul Nicholls. So even I believe that Paul Nicholls was still out of form at that time. He actually wasn't. He's got his horses banging form. That beat Tedley, who I thought was given a poor ride by Jamie Brace, and Dreaming Blue was third. Now, Killer Kane wasn't that far behind them, and he actually set all of, he made the running over the 2.5 mile trip, set the pace, set the race up for the three that race behind him. Now, 2.5 mile isn't far enough for Killer Kane. He does need the 3 mile trip, and he probably doesn't need a race like that. That looked a little bit competitive. There was a couple of unexposed rivals, Bo Balco and Tedley particularly. And yeah, he just set the race up for the others. He's got to go back to Kempton, surely. There is a 3 mile handicap chase here, this one here, for horses rated 0 to 135. So rated 121, he would definitely get in. And his form at Kempton is very good. We liked him last time at Kempton, and he ran a really good race, finishing third. Got really well supported that day, ended up going off favourite. And it just didn't quite work. But he wasn't beaten that far. He's dropped £8 since that run. If they put Callum on as well and took another 5 off instead of Freddie's taking 3 off, they could be another couple of pounds effectively lower. And yeah, it's not going to take a huge amount of winning, that race at Kempton. It's a 0 to 135. It's the race that I don't want to see forward planning, but I wouldn't mind seeing Killer Kane, and I think he could then get a relatively easy lead at the front at Kempton, and that's his trip, that's his race. He's got some good form at the track, and yeah, that's where I hope we see Killer Kane next time, and I'd be very interested in him in a Class 3 at the track. Moving on to Percussion, who has dropped £2 to 125. Now, interestingly, that actually means he has dropped £4, because he was due to drop £2 when he turned up at Aintree. I don't totally know why he was due to drop £2, because his previous effort at Uttoxeter was good. He'd finished second, only beaten 3 lengths. A very bizarre collateral form drop of £2 for Percussion. Went to the Sefton, definitely had a good chance in the Sefton, and ran okay, finished 7th. Maybe those in front of him were the right type of horses, particularly King Tertian, who was really well supported, Gaborio, who was expected to go well all week. And I just wonder whether the first run back for 132 days just caught up with Percussion, and maybe he wants a bit softer ground. It was only good to soft. His best efforts probably came last year on the heavy and soft ground. Heavy, he finished second in the Sefton, and then on heavy going again, finished third in a Beecher Chase. Maybe does need that bit of cut in the ground now, and that was just a bit quick, because he was actually still involved, I think, turning in for home with about 2 to jump, was still there and just faded late on. Maybe didn't have the speed like the others did to kick away again. Where does Percussion go? Surely this is a no-brainer. Let's just reload that page. You got to go for the Beecher Chase. It looks pretty obvious. Off 125, Percussion would actually be running off an £11 lower mark than finishing third last year, sent off 6 to 1. If the horse squeezes in, because 125 might be right on the border of actually not getting in the race. If Percussion does get in, yeah, I think Percussion will go really well in the Beecher Chase, because hopefully we've had a bit of rains by then and the ground is, soft. If it's soft at Aintree, that will probably be perfect for Percussion. We move on. We go to the next horse that I'm interested in. I'm just going to refresh all these pages and make sure they've loaded. And this one I spoke about in a previous video, or I think I even included it in the email. Sail Away dropped £2 to 136 after falling at Newbury. Now, go back and watch that race at Newbury. I think he was just getting involved and just about to run a really good race. and show a bit of form for the first time in a while. Got to remember, he has been rated as high as 145. He won the Novices Champion Handicap Chase at Ayr back in 2023, and then it all kind of went wrong, but it might have just been that the horse was off a too high a mark. They changed tactics at Newbury last time out. They dropped the horse out, and he was coming into the race really stylishly, I thought, when unfortunately falling. Now, I thought it wasn't a bad effort at all. And he's dropped so much in the handicap that I think he could end up in this race here. Where is it? This race here, the 0 to 145. The 150, sorry. I can't believe I said 145. It quite clearly says 0 to 150. The 0 to 150, sail away off 136. Now, why do I like Doncaster? Well, he's actually been to Doncaster a couple of times. We can see here. And he finished 6th and 4th. Okay, not bad efforts. 6th, he was beaten 8 3/4 lengths off 144, an £8 higher mark. And 4th, beaten 4 lengths in the Great Yorkshire Chase off 142. Now rated 136. Now, if I like Forward Plan to return for the Great Yorkshire Chase, and Forward Plan would run off a £8 higher mark, sail away, therefore then running off a, what is that, £6 lower mark, and wasn't that far behind Forward Plan at all, I think sail away would go really well there. If he's okay from his fall and he, there was no lasting effects, and he does manage to get back for this race in December, I think this 0 to 150 at Doncaster would be a good race for him, and then they could go to the Great Yorkshire Chase. I'd rather go for this race first, try and win this, and then go to Great Yorkshire Chase instead of the plan for Forward Plan, which is to wait for that, because I think he's high enough in the handicap and probably has one go at a big handicap, whereas Sail Away has dropped so much that he could have 2 if they try these hold-up tactics again. So that's Sail Away. The next horse I want to talk about, again, we've mentioned this in my emails, it's Your Own Story, who demonstrated at Carlisle that was too sharp, too short, didn't want the ground really. 3 mile 2. There's an obvious race. It is this one here. It's a 4 mile Borders National Handicap Steeplechase, Class 3 for horses rated 0 to 140. Currently rated 128. Is going to need to win something soon to get in the Grand National, and I think that's what their plan is. Go and win the Borders National. When is that? That's on the 8th of December. You could then potentially end up in the Welsh National. But yeah, go for the Borders National, and I think the horse would take all of the beating in the Borders National. Has been to Kelso before, over 3 mile, finished 2nd, beaten 2 lengths by Up Helia King. If that was over a mile further, I would be very confident of a huge run from Your Own Story.